This story is titled, Someone I Loved Deeply Sold All My Important Possessions on My Second Birthday for No Reason, so I made sure she was gone from my life. Hey Reddit, I'm 52 years old, and I've been lurking on Reddit for years, but never thought I'd have a story worth posting. Well, buckle up, because what happened to me is absolutely insane, and the revenge I got was even better. This all unfolded over the past year and just reached its conclusion last month. I'm still processing everything, but I figured you folks would appreciate a good justice story. Fair warning, this is going to be incredibly long, but stick with me because the payoff is incredible. I'm using a throwaway account for obvious reasons, and while I've changed some details to protect privacy, the core story is 100% real. Let me start with some background so you understand the full scope of this disaster. I'm 52 years old and have been working in industrial manufacturing my entire adult life. I started when I was 19 as a general laborer making minimum wage, busting my ass carrying materials and operating heavy machinery. Through sheer determination and hard work, I worked my way up over 33 years to become a senior operations manager for one of the biggest manufacturing companies in our state. In the last few years, I was pulling down solid money. Not rich by any means, but damn good for a guy who never went to college and built his career from the ground up. I've been absolutely obsessed with motorcycles since I was a kid. My old man bought me a beat-up Yamaha dirt bike when I was 12, and I've been riding ever since. There's nothing like the feeling of being on two wheels. The freedom, the power, the pure adrenaline rush. It's like meditation and extreme sports rolled into one incredible experience. Over the years, I built up a collection of 4 classic bikes that were my absolute pride and joy. First was my 1973 Honda CB750, the bike that started the superbike era. I bought it in 2009 for $3,200 and spent about $4,800 restoring it to absolute showroom condition. New paint, completely rebuilt engine, chrome everywhere you looked. It's probably worth around $12,000 now. Second was my 1981 Kawasaki KZ1000, a pure speed demon from the early 80s. I found it in a barn in 2011, completely disassembled and looking like a hopeless case. It took me 2 full years to rebuild it from the ground up, and I'm into it for about $5,500 total. It's worth around $8,500 today. Third was my 1986 Yamaha FZR 600, which served as my track day bike. Lightweight, fast as hell, and handles like an absolute dream. I bought it running but cosmetically ugly in 2013 for $2,800, then spent another $3,200 making it perfect. It's probably worth $7,000 now. But the crown jewel of my collection was my 1969 Triumph Bonneville, my absolute baby. I found it as a complete basket case in 2015, literally just boxes of rusty parts and a frame that looked like it had been through a war. I spent 3 full years rebuilding every single component from scratch. New everything. Engine, transmission, wheels, brakes, electrical system, paint, you name it. I'm into it for about $8,700 in parts alone, not counting the hundreds of hours of labor I poured into it. That bike is easily worth $15,000, maybe more to the right buyer. These weren't just motorcycles to me. They were works of art, pieces of history, and the result of decades of passion and craftsmanship. Every weekend for years, I'd be out in my garage with these bikes, cleaning them, tuning them, modifying them, perfecting every detail. It was my therapy, my hobby, and honestly, my retirement plan all rolled into one. Each bike represented years of work, research, and love. Now let me tell you about my ex-wife Victoria, because understanding what kind of person she is will be crucial to this story. We met in 2014 at some charity event my company dragged me to. I was 49. She was 28. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Huge red flag. But Jesus Christ, this woman was absolutely gorgeous. She was 5'7", with stunning brunette hair and looked like she had stepped straight out of a magazine. She had this incredible way of looking at you like you were the most interesting person in the world, making you feel like you were the center of her universe. I was coming off a messy divorce from my first wife. That's a different story entirely, but she was actually a decent person and we just grew apart over time. I was lonely, vulnerable, and honestly thinking with my dick instead of my brain. Victoria seemed absolutely perfect at first. Sweet, attentive, intelligent. She laughed at all my jokes and acted like she was genuinely fascinated by my work and my bikes. She claimed to work in event planning for some hotel chain downtown, making it sound like she was climbing the corporate ladder with big ambitions and was completely financially independent. All lies, as I would discover later. We started dating, and she was absolutely amazing at first. She was always available when I wanted to see her, never complained about my long work hours, and seemed genuinely interested in learning about motorcycles. She'd come out to the garage while I was working and ask thoughtful questions, bring me sandwiches, and act like the perfect supportive girlfriend. For the first time in years, I felt like I had found someone who truly understood and appreciated me. After about 4 months, she started having problems with her apartment. The landlord was selling, rent was going up dramatically, her roommate was moving out. Always something. So, like an absolute idiot, I invited her to move in with me. She jumped at the chance without hesitation. That's when things started changing, but so gradually that I didn't notice at first. The job at the hotel mysteriously ended when they restructured. Then she got another job at an event company that lasted exactly 3 months before she quit, because her boss was impossible to work with. Then another job for 2 months before she was laid off due to budget cuts. Every single job ended the same way. It was never her fault. Always some external circumstance completely beyond her control. And somehow, she never quite managed to find the next job before her savings ran out. Guess who picked up the slack? But she was incredible in bed, didn't complain about my hobbies, and made me feel young again, so I kept making excuses for her. She's just going through a rough patch, I told myself. The job market is tough. She'll get back on her feet soon. Classic sucker behavior. And I fell for it completely. We got married in Vegas in 2015 after dating for less than a year. She pushed hard for it, constantly talking about how she wanted to build a life together and be a real team. I was so completely whipped that I didn't even think about a prenuptial agreement. Biggest mistake of my entire life. After we got married, Victoria basically stopped even pretending to look for work. There was always some excuse. She was exploring different career options, or taking time to figure out what she really wanted to do. Or my personal favorite, focusing on making our home perfect. Meanwhile, I'm busting my ass 50 to 60 hours a week at the manufacturing plant, dealing with production schedules, equipment breakdowns, quality control issues, and all the other bullshit that comes with managing million-dollar operations. I'd come home exhausted and sore, and she'd be there fresh from her Pilates class or lunch with friends, talking enthusiastically about her plans to redecorate the living room. But here's the thing. She was incredibly smart about her manipulation. She never demanded anything outright. She'd just make innocent suggestions. Wouldn't it be nice if we updated the kitchen? Or, I saw the cutest dress today, but it's a little expensive. Or, my friend Christina is going to France, it looks so fun. And like a complete idiot, I'd usually cave because I loved her, because I wanted her to be happy, and because she made me feel like a successful man who could provide for his woman. Classic manipulation, and I fell for it every single time. The worst part was how she gradually started treating my bikes. At first, she acted genuinely interested, but over time, she began making little passive-aggressive comments. "You spend a lot of time out there," she'd say, or, "Do you really need 4 motorcycles?" Or, "It's so loud when you start them up in the morning." I should have seen the writing on the wall, but I was completely blind to it. I thought I had the perfect setup. Beautiful younger wife, nice house, cool hobby, good job. I was living the dream, or so I thought. Then, June 15th, 2024 happened, my retirement day. The day that was supposed to be the beginning of the best chapter of my life became the day I learned exactly who my wife really was. June 15th started out absolutely perfect, my last day after 33 years in manufacturing. The company threw me a really nice little party with cake, speeches, presentations, the whole 9 yards. My boss gave me a beautiful watch and talked about how I'd helped build half the industrial infrastructure in our region. It felt incredible, you know? Like all those years of hard work actually meant something significant. I had the entire day planned out perfectly. Tomorrow morning, I was going to fire up the Triumph and take a long, celebratory ride through the countryside. I had this whole route mapped out. Beautiful back roads winding through the state forest, a stop at this charming little diner I'd been meaning to try for years, maybe hit a few scenic overlooks along the way. It would be the perfect way to kick off my retirement and embrace the freedom I'd been working toward for decades. The pension wouldn't start for another month, but I had plenty stashed away in savings and my 401k was solid. Not rich by any means, but comfortable enough to enjoy my golden years without constantly stressing about money. Finally, I was going to have time to really ride my bikes the way I'd always dreamed. Maybe do some long-distance touring, hit up some motorcycle rallies I'd been too busy to attend, really live the life I'd been postponing for 3 decades. I was feeling absolutely incredible during the drive home that afternoon. Windows down, music up, thinking about all the freedom I was about to have. No more 5:30 a.m. start times. No more dealing with production delays and frustrated customers. No more standing in the sweltering heat waiting for equipment repairs. Just me, my bikes, and the open road stretching endlessly ahead. I pulled into my driveway around 4:15 p.m. and noticed that Victoria's Lexus wasn't there. I figured she was out shopping or at one of her yoga classes or whatever she did to fill her days. Didn't think much of it at all. The first thing I always did when I got home was check on my bikes. It was like a ritual. I had them parked in the garage under custom covers I'd bought specifically for each one, kept them clean and meticulously maintained even when I couldn't ride them much due to work demands. They were like four beautiful pieces of art sitting there, patiently waiting for me. I hit the garage door opener and walked in, already smiling as I thought about tomorrow's celebratory ride. Then my brain just completely stopped working for a second. The garage was empty. Completely, utterly empty, except for Victoria's exercise equipment and some storage boxes. 4 parking spots where my motorcycles should have been showed nothing but oil stains on the concrete. My tools were still there. My workbench was untouched. All my spare parts and maintenance supplies were exactly where I'd left them. But the bikes were gone. I literally thought I was losing my mind. I started walking around the garage like maybe 4 motorcycles could somehow be hiding behind a storage cabinet. I checked the side yard thinking maybe someone had moved them for some reason. Nothing. Then the panic hit me like a freight train. Someone had broken in and stolen them. Had to be. These were classic bikes worth serious money. Exactly the kind of thing professional thieves target when they know what they're looking for. I was about to call 911 when I heard Victoria's car pulling up the driveway. She comes walking in through the garage carrying multiple shopping bags from Nordstrom, Macy's, and some expensive makeup store, humming cheerfully like she didn't have a care in the world. She was practically glowing with satisfaction, had this incredibly satisfied smile on her face like she had just accomplished something major and was feeling very pleased with herself. "Victoria," I said, trying desperately to keep my voice calm and controlled. "Where are my motorcycles?" She didn't even have the basic decency to look guilty. Just casually set down her shopping bags and said, "Oh, those old things. I sold them. Got a really good deal too. 18,000 cash. I already put a deposit down on that kitchen remodel we've been talking about." We had never, not once, talked about any kitchen remodel. Our kitchen was perfectly fine. I'd updated it myself just 3 years ago with new cabinets, granite countertops, and stainless steel appliances. It looked great and functioned perfectly. But more importantly, she had just told me she sold $35,000 worth of motorcycles for $18,000. My retirement celebration bikes, my pride and joy, my life's passion, gone. "Victoria," I said, and I could hear my voice starting to shake with barely controlled rage. "You sold my motorcycle collection without asking me? On my retirement day?" She actually rolled her eyes like I was being completely unreasonable for being upset about this. "Oh, please, Marcus, don't be so dramatic. You barely rode those things anyway. They were just taking up space in the garage collecting dust. Besides, you're retired now. You need to start acting your age instead of trying to be some kind of rebel without a cause. Barely rode them. I rode them every single weekend that weather permitted. I'd planned my entire retirement around those bikes, dreamed about the adventures we'd have together. And acting my age? What the hell did that even mean? Victoria, I rode those bikes constantly. I've been planning motorcycle trips for my retirement for years. Those bikes were worth at least $35,000, probably more. You sold them for half their actual value. Look, what's done is done," she said, waving her hand dismissively like she was swatting away an annoying fly. "We can use the money for things we actually need, like updating this house so it doesn't look like some old bachelor pad. Maybe get some decent furniture, redo the master bathroom, make this place look like successful people actually live here." Successful people? I'd worked my ass off for 4 decades to pay for this house, and it was beautiful. I'd done most of the renovation work myself, and it looked like something straight out of a home improvement magazine. But apparently, that wasn't good enough for her. "Who did you sell them to?" I asked, trying to maintain some semblance of control over this nightmare situation. "Some guy I found online. Look, I don't want to argue about this anymore. It's done, and it's for the best. You can find other hobbies that are more appropriate for a man your age." Other hobbies? More appropriate? I felt like I was talking to a complete stranger. This wasn't the woman I'd married, or maybe it was, and I'd just been too blind to see who she really was this entire time. I went inside immediately and checked our bank account online. Sure enough, there was an $18,000 deposit from yesterday. But what made my blood absolutely boil was that she'd already spent $3,800 of it. Nordstrom, Sephora, some high-end salon, a spa, and something called luxury lifestyle consulting for $500. The money from selling my life's work was already being pissed away on her endless shopping spree. That night, she acted like absolutely nothing had happened. She cooked dinner, chatted casually about her plans for redecorating, and even mentioned wanting to take a trip to Italy now that we have some extra cash. She was in an absolutely amazing mood, happier than I'd seen her in months. I barely said a word throughout the entire evening, just sat there thinking about my triumph, wondering where it was, who was riding it, whether they understood what they had. I thought about all the rides I'd never take, all the rallies I'd miss, all the memories I'd never be able to make. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just laid there staring at the ceiling, listening to Victoria snore peacefully beside me, and planning my next move. Because if she thought she could destroy my passion and face absolutely no consequences, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. The next morning, Victoria left for her yoga class like it was any other ordinary day. She kissed me goodbye cheerfully and told me to try to relax and enjoy retirement, then drove off in her Lexus, the one I'd been making payments on for the past 3 years. The second her car disappeared from sight, I got to work. First, I needed to find out exactly what had happened to my bikes. I went through Victoria's laptop, which she'd carelessly left open on the kitchen counter. No password protection because she never thought I'd have any reason to snoop through her personal stuff. Big mistake on her part. What I found in her email made me physically sick to my stomach. There were email chains going back to January. 4 full months of planning this betrayal behind my back. She'd been corresponding with someone named Derek, who ran a vintage motorcycle shop 2 towns over. She'd been sending him detailed pictures of my bikes, getting quotes, and planning the entire sale without my knowledge. The emails were absolutely brutal to read. January 15th, Victoria to Derek. Hi, I'm looking to sell my husband's motorcycle collection. He's obsessed with these stupid things and spends more time with them than he does with me. I need them gone ASAP. Attached are photos. January 18th, Derek to Victoria. These are some beautiful bikes, especially that Triumph. In good condition, you're looking at around $35,000 to $40,000 for the collection. Are you sure your husband wants to sell? January 18th, Victoria to Derek. Trust me, he wants to sell. He just doesn't know it yet. What's the fastest you can move them? And honestly, I don't need top dollar. I just need them gone before he retires and becomes even more insufferable. There were dozens more emails over the following months. Victoria pumping Derek for information about market values, asking about quick cash sales, even requesting that he come look at the bikes while I was at work to give her a firm offer. The worst email was from February 28th, Victoria to Derek. My husband retires next month and I'm terrified he's going to want to spend all his time riding around like some pathetic old man trying to relive his youth. I can't stand the thought of being married to someone who thinks he's a badass biker when he's really just an aging factory worker. I deserve better than this life. Once I get rid of these money pits, I can finally start working on upgrading our lifestyle to match what I actually deserve. I had to read that email 3 times before it fully sank in. She wasn't just stealing my bikes, she was stealing my identity, my passion, everything that made retirement worth looking forward to. She thought I was pathetic for having hobbies that brought me genuine joy. But the emails kept going, and in March, as my retirement date approached, the tone became increasingly urgent. March 10th, Victoria to Derek. He retires next week and I'm running out of time. Can you come get them this Thursday while he's at work? I'll take $18,000 cash for the lot if you can move fast. March 10th, Derek to Victoria. $18,000 is pretty low for these bikes, especially the Triumph. That one alone is worth $15,000 easy. Are you sure about this? March 11th, Victoria to Derek. I'm sure. I just want them gone. He'll get over it eventually. Men always think their toys are more important than they really are. She'd sold $35,000 worth of motorcycles for $18,000 because she was impatient and wanted them gone immediately. She didn't care about the money. She cared about destroying something that was fundamentally important to me. But the investigation was just getting started. I went through her phone next, and that's where I found the really damaging stuff. Text messages with her friends revealed her true feelings about our marriage in ways that were absolutely devastating to read. Victoria to friend Christina. God, I can't wait until Marcus retires. Finally going to have time to work on him and fix all the things I hate about our life. Victoria to friend Beth. Marcus thinks he's going to spend retirement riding motorcycles like some kind of badass. I've got news for him. That ends now. Victoria to friend Nicole. I married a factory worker thinking he had money, but he lives like he's broke. Time to make some changes around here. Then I found something that made my blood run absolutely cold. screenshots of conversations with other men on dating apps. She wasn't physically cheating as far as I could tell, but she was definitely shopping around, looking for someone with more money. Messages like, "My husband is okay, but he's not really going anywhere financially. I married down and I'm starting to regret it. Looking for someone who can actually afford the lifestyle I deserve. Tired of being married to a blue-collar guy." The woman I'd been supporting for 9 years, the woman I'd married and loved and provided for, had been planning to destroy my retirement and was actively looking for my replacement. But I needed more evidence to build a complete picture of what I was dealing with. I called Derek's shop directly. "Hey, this is Marcus, Victoria's husband. I understand you bought some motorcycles from my wife yesterday." There was a long, uncomfortable pause. "Oh man, I was wondering when you'd call. Look, your wife said you were completely on board with selling them, but something felt really off about the whole thing." "What felt off about it?" "Well, she didn't know anything about the bikes, couldn't answer basic questions about maintenance, modifications, history, nothing. And when I told her they were worth way more than $18,000, she just said she didn't care and wanted them gone fast. Plus, she seemed really nervous, like she was in a hurry to get it done before someone found out." Derek turned out to be a genuinely decent guy. He'd been in the vintage bike business for 20 years and had never seen anything like it. Most people who sell collections like this know exactly what they have and want top dollar. Your wife acted like she was getting rid of garbage. "Have you sold them yet?" "No, actually. I was planning to clean them up and flip them, but honestly, I felt bad about the whole thing. These bikes mean something to someone, you know? I can tell they were maintained with love. That's when I knew I had a real chance to get them back. But first, I needed to understand the full scope of what Victoria had done to me over the years. I spent the next week doing a deep dive into our finances, and what I found was a systematic pattern of financial abuse that had been going on for our entire marriage. Over the next week, while Victoria went about her normal routine of yoga classes and lunch dates, I systematically documented 9 years of financial manipulation and abuse. The evidence was absolutely overwhelming once I started looking for it with clear eyes. Employment history, or complete lack thereof. From 2015 to 2016, she worked as an event coordinator at a hotel chain, but the company restructured after 4 months. She collected unemployment for 6 months without seriously looking for work. In 2016, she got a job as a marketing assistant at a local business, but quit after 2 months, claiming her boss was sexist. In 2017, she worked as an event planner at a conference center, but was fired after 6 weeks for attendance issues. From 2017 to 2018, she was unemployed for 8 months, claiming she was starting her own business that never materialized. In 2018, she took a part-time retail job but quit after 3 months because the hours were inconvenient. From 2019 to 2024, she did sporadic consulting work that never seemed to pay anything substantial. In 9 years of marriage, Victoria had worked a total of maybe 18 months and contributed approximately $8,000 to our household. Meanwhile, I'd earned over $750,000 and paid for literally everything. The spending patterns were even more revealing. Going through credit card statements and bank records revealed a clear pattern of financial abuse. She averaged $2,800 per month on personal shopping, clothes, makeup, salon treatments, $850 per month on gym, yoga, and wellness memberships, $1,200 per month on dining out and entertainment, always at expensive places, $500 a month on various subscriptions, premium everything, streaming services, beauty boxes, lifestyle coaching, $3,000 to $5,000 every few months on seasonal wardrobe updates. Meanwhile, whenever I wanted to buy something for myself, tools, bike parts, work equipment, she'd make pointed comments about being more careful with money and setting a budget. The control tactics became crystal clear once I analyzed our relationship objectively. She had gradually taken over bill paying and budget management, claiming she was better with details. This gave her complete visibility into our finances while keeping me in the dark about her spending. Whenever I questioned expenses, she'd turn it around. "I thought you wanted me to be happy. Don't you think I deserve nice things? You make good money. Why are you being so cheap?" She always had a plan to contribute more once I find the right opportunity, or after I finish this certification, or when my business takes off. The future contributions never materialized. Meanwhile, she gradually attacked my interests and hobbies. It started subtle. "You spend a lot of time in the garage," and escalated to direct criticism of my immaturity and inappropriate interests. She had positioned herself as the responsible one to our friends, talking about how she had to manage my spending and keep me grounded. Meanwhile, I was driving a 2018 Ford F-150 that I'd bought used and planned to keep for another decade. My luxury purchases were motorcycle parts and tools for my shop. The retirement sabotage wasn't impulsive at all. It was the culmination of a carefully orchestrated long-term plan to reshape my retirement around her vision instead of mine. In emails I found from early 2023, she'd written to a friend, "Marcus thinks he's going to retire and become some kind of free spirit, riding motorcycles around the country. That's not happening. I've got plans for our retirement and they don't include him acting like a teenager." Another message revealed even more. "I'm going to use his retirement to finally get the lifestyle I signed up for. No more living like middle-class people when we have assets we could leverage." She'd been planning to push me into selling the house and buying something more expensive, using my retirement funds for her dream renovations, and essentially trapping me in debt so I'd have to keep working or at least stop wasting money on hobbies. The motorcycle sale was step one. Eliminate my passion so I'd be more focused on her priorities. But the most damaging evidence was what I found in her browsing history and saved documents. Victoria had been extensively researching divorce law, specifically looking up information about spousal support calculations, asset division in long-term marriages, and how to maximize settlement amounts. She'd been investigating whether retirement funds count as marital property, and had even saved documents from a law firm's website titled "Maximizing Your Divorce Settlement: A Guide for Wives." The woman had been planning to divorce me and take half of everything I'd worked for, right around the time I retired and my earning potential dropped to zero. But she'd made one crucial mistake in her planning. She'd gotten greedy and jumped the gun with the motorcycle sale. Instead of waiting until after she'd filed for divorce, she'd committed theft and given me all the evidence I needed to destroy her. By the end of that week, I had a complete picture of who Victoria really was and what she'd been doing to me for 9 years. The motorcycle sale wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the first time she'd been bold enough to do something so obviously criminal that I couldn't ignore it. Now it was time to fight back. Armed with a mountain of evidence, I made my first call to Benjamin Thompson, the attorney we'd used for some business contracts at my work. Benjamin was a sharp guy who specialized in family law and business litigation, exactly what I needed. "Marcus, good to hear from you. How's retirement treating you?" "Not great, Benjamin. I need your help with something serious." I laid out the whole situation: the theft of my motorcycles, the forged documents Victoria had to sign for title transfers on each bike, the pattern of financial abuse, and her apparent plans to divorce me and take half my assets. "Jesus Christ, Marcus. Your wife sold property worth $35,000 for $18,000 without your consent and forged your signature on the title transfers? That's theft, forgery, and fraud. And that's just the beginning." I sent him everything I'd compiled: the emails, text messages, financial records, browsing history, all of it. Benjamin called me back 2 hours later. "Marcus, this is one of the most clear-cut cases of spousal theft and financial abuse I've ever seen. We've got her dead to rights on multiple felonies, and the evidence of her planning to defraud you in a divorce is just, wow. What are my options?" "Several. We can pursue criminal charges for theft, forgery, and fraud. We can file an emergency motion to freeze all marital assets. We can sue for recovery of the motorcycles or their full value. And honestly, with this evidence, if she tries to divorce you, she'll be lucky to get anything at all." The plan we developed was surgical and methodical. Phase 1. Recover the motorcycles immediately before Derek sold them. Phase 2. Confront Victoria with the evidence and gauge her response. Phase 3. Initiate asset protection and separation. Phase 4. Prepare for the nuclear option if she didn't cooperate. Benjamin drew up a formal demand letter for Derek, explaining that the motorcycles had been sold without proper authorization and demanding their immediate return. The letter made it crystal clear that Derek could either return the bikes voluntarily or face charges for receiving stolen property. I drove to Derek's shop that afternoon with the letter and copies of all the forged title transfers. Derek took one look at the evidence and shook his head sympathetically. "Man, I feel terrible about this. I knew something was off when she couldn't answer basic questions about the bikes. Look, I haven't sold them yet, and I can tell these meant a lot to you. Let's work something out." Derek was actually more decent than he had to be. Since he'd paid $18,000 for the bikes, legally he was entitled to get his money back before returning them. But he could see how much they meant to me and made me a fair deal. "Pay me back the $18,000 and they're yours. I'll eat the time and effort I put into evaluating them. I've been riding for 30 years. I know what it's like to lose a bike you love. The problem was that Victoria had already blown through $8,000 of the money. But I had a plan for that too. I called Victoria while I was standing in Derek's shop looking at my babies. Hey babe, I need to ask you something about the motorcycle money. What about it? She sounded immediately defensive. Well, I was thinking maybe we should put most of it into our savings account instead of spending it right away. You know, be responsible about retirement planning. I already told you we're using it for the kitchen renovation. I've already put down deposits. How much have you spent so far? That's not really your concern. I'm managing our finances now. Perfect. She just admitted to spending money that wasn't hers without authorization, and I had it recorded on my phone. Victoria, I need you to understand something. Those motorcycles weren't marital property. They were my separate property that I owned before we got married. You had no legal right to sell them. Long pause. What are you talking about? We're married. What's yours is mine. No, Victoria, that's not how it works, and forgery is a felony. I could hear the panic creeping into her voice. Forgery? I didn't forge anything. You signed my name on 4 title transfers. That's forgery. And selling someone else's property without authorization is theft. I'm looking at my motorcycles right now, and I'm paying Derek his money back. Then you and I are going to have a very serious conversation about your future. I hung up and called Benjamin. Execute Phase 2. Freeze everything. Within 2 hours, Benjamin had filed emergency motions to freeze all of our joint accounts pending investigation of financial crimes. Victoria's credit cards were suspended. Her access to our checking account was blocked, and a restraining order was placed on all major assets. I paid Derek the $18,000 from my personal checking account, the one Victoria didn't have access to, and loaded my bikes into a rented trailer. Driving home with my Triumph, Kawasaki, Honda, and Yamaha secured behind me felt like the first real victory in what I knew was going to be a long war. Victoria was waiting in the driveway when I pulled up, and she was absolutely furious. What the hell did you do? My credit cards aren't working. The bank says our accounts are frozen. I protected myself from further theft. We need to talk. I parked the trailer in our driveway and started unloading my motorcycles one by one. Victoria stood there watching, her face cycling through confusion, anger, and what looked like the first hint of real fear I'd ever seen from her. You can't just freeze our accounts, she screamed. That's my money too. Actually, it's not. Most of that money came from my income, and you stole $18,000 of it by selling property that belonged to me. The courts tend to frown on that. I wheeled the Triumph into the garage, then came back for the Kawasaki. Victoria followed me around like an angry puppy, continuing to yell about her rights and how I was being unreasonable. Victoria, we need to have a serious conversation inside. Now. I led her to the kitchen table where I had printouts of everything waiting. The emails, the text messages, the financial records, all of it organized in neat little piles like a prosecutor's case file. Her face went completely white when she saw it all laid out. You went through my private communications? I investigated theft of my property. Sit down. She sat, but she was still trying to maintain the offensive. This is ridiculous. I'm your wife. I can't steal from you. And those emails are taken out of context. I started reading her own words back to her. He's really just an aging factory worker. I deserve better than this life. Tired of being married to a blue-collar guy. I married down and I'm starting to regret it. Looking for someone who can actually afford the lifestyle I deserve. With each quote, she seemed to shrink a little more into her chair. So let me make sure I understand this correctly, I continued. You married me under false pretenses, pretending to be someone you're not. You've spent 9 years systematically draining our finances while contributing nothing. You've been emotionally cheating by shopping for my replacement. And then you decided to steal my most prized possessions and sell them for half their value to fund your shopping addiction. Then you plan to divorce me and take half of everything I've worked for my entire life. Did I miss anything? She was crying now, but they looked like tears of rage and frustration, not remorse. Fine. You want the truth? Yes, I'm disappointed in how our marriage turned out. I thought I was marrying someone successful, someone who could give me the life I wanted. Instead, I got stuck with some blue-collar worker who plays with motorcycles like a teenager. There it was. The mask finally came off completely. I've wasted 9 years of my life waiting for you to become someone worth being married to. Do you have any idea what it's like being introduced as the wife of a factory worker? My friends' husbands are doctors, lawyers, executives. What am I supposed to say when they ask what you do? You could say I'm a skilled professional who's worked his way up from nothing and built a good life for us. She actually laughed. Actually laughed. A good life? Marcus, look around. This house is nice, but it's not impressive. Your truck is practical, but it's not luxury. We go on vacation once a year to some cabin in the mountains instead of Europe or the Caribbean. I'm 34 years old and I'm living like I'm married to a middle manager. So you decided to steal from me to upgrade your lifestyle? I decided to make some adult decisions about our future since you clearly weren't going to. Those motorcycles were a waste of money and space. The $18,000 I got for them is going toward things that actually matter, making this house look like successful people live here. What about the $8,000 you already spent on yourself? Her face flushed red. I deserve those things. Do you have any idea how hard it is being married to someone who doesn't understand that appearances matter? I have to work twice as hard just to look like I belong in the same social circles as my friends. That's when I realized I wasn't dealing with someone who'd made a mistake or had a moment of poor judgment. I was dealing with a sociopath who genuinely believed she was entitled to steal from me because she didn't think I was good enough for her. Here's what's going to happen, Victoria. You're going to pack a bag and leave this house tonight. You can stay wherever you want, but you're not staying here. You can't kick me out. This is my house, too. Actually, it's not. The deed is in my name only because I bought it before we got married. And you've never contributed a penny toward the mortgage, taxes, or maintenance. That's not legal. I have rights. You have the right to remain silent because anything you say can and will be used against you in divorce court. Benjamin has already filed the paperwork. You'll be served tomorrow. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You're divorcing me over some stupid motorcycles? No, Victoria. I'm divorcing you because you're a thief, a liar, and a fraud who's been using me for 9 years. The motorcycles were just the wake-up call I needed. This is insane. We can work through this. We can go to counseling. The time for working through things was before you committed felonies against me. Pack your shit and get out. She tried every manipulation tactic in the book. Tears, anger, threats, promises to change, attempts at seduction, claims that I was having a mental breakdown. None of it worked because I finally saw her for what she really was. 2 hours later, she was loading suitcases into her Lexus while screaming about how she was going to take me for everything I'm worth in the divorce. I watched her drive away from the window of my garage, surrounded by my 4 beautiful motorcycles, and felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. But this story is far from over, because what happened next proved that Victoria was even more vindictive and stupid than I had originally thought. The divorce proceedings were about to get very interesting, and my revenge was just getting started. Over the next few weeks, Victoria tried everything imaginable to get back into my good graces. First came the apologetic phone calls, claiming she had made a terrible mistake and wanted to work things out. When I didn't respond to those, she escalated to showing up at my house unannounced, begging me to reconsider and give our marriage another chance. I had security cameras installed after the first incident and documented every single violation of the restraining order. Then she tried a completely different approach. She started spreading lies to our mutual friends, claiming I was having a midlife crisis and that she was the victim of an abusive husband who was trying to steal everything from her. Lucky for me, I had already shown several close friends the evidence of her theft and manipulation, so her sob story didn't get much traction with people who knew the real situation. The divorce proceedings moved quickly thanks to Benjamin's skill and the mountain of evidence we had against her. Victoria's lawyer tried to argue for spousal support and an equal division of assets, but when Benjamin presented the comprehensive documentation of her theft, forgery, and financial abuse, her attorney basically threw in the towel. There wasn't much he could do when faced with such overwhelming evidence of criminal behavior. Victoria walked away with absolutely nothing. No spousal support, no house, no savings, just her car, which was still being financed, and whatever personal belongings she could carry. The prenuptial agreement I should have insisted on originally wouldn't have been nearly as effective as her own criminal behavior in protecting my assets. But here's where it gets really good. Remember how Victoria had been researching divorce law and planning to take me for everything I was worth? Well, it turns out she had been bragging to her friends about her master plan to divorce me right after retirement. And one of those friends happened to work at the same company where I had worked for 33 years. This friend, Lisa, felt genuinely guilty about what Victoria was planning and reached out to me after the divorce was finalized. Marcus, I think you should know. Victoria had been planning this divorce for over a year. She even calculated how much she thought she could get and was shopping for apartments in the expensive part of town. She was counting on your retirement money to fund her new lifestyle. Lisa provided me with screenshots of group chat conversations where Victoria had been bragging about her upcoming payday, including messages about how she was going to make me pay for wasting her best years. This additional evidence was the cherry on top of an already airtight case against her. The criminal charges ended up sticking too. Victoria was convicted of theft and forgery, got 2 years probation, and had to pay restitution plus all court costs and legal fees. She also had to perform 200 hours of community service. The judge was particularly harsh because she showed absolutely no remorse and tried to claim she was the real victim throughout the entire proceedings. 6 months after the divorce was final, I ran into Derek at a motorcycle rally. He told me he'd heard through the grapevine that Victoria had tried to sell some jewelry to another dealer in town, claiming it was hers, but the serial numbers showed it was reported stolen. Apparently, she hadn't learned her lesson about theft and was facing new charges. As for me, well, retirement turned out to be everything I'd hoped for and more, without Victoria draining my finances and energy. I was able to truly enjoy my golden years. I took that cross-country motorcycle trip I'd been planning for years, hit up rallies in Sturgis, Daytona, and Laconia, made new friends who shared my passion for riding, and finally felt like I was living life completely on my own terms. I even started dating again after about a year. I met a wonderful woman named Patricia at a bike rally. She's 48, owns her own small business, and rides a beautiful Harley-Davidson Sportster. The difference between her and Victoria is like night and day. Patricia is financially independent, emotionally mature, and genuinely interested in the things that make me happy. She thinks my bike collection is amazing and often suggests rides and rallies we should attend together. We've been together for 8 months now, and I'm happier than I've been in decades. Sometimes I actually feel grateful to Victoria for showing her true colors when she did. If she had waited until after we were divorced to reveal what a horrible person she was, I might have spent my entire retirement being manipulated and financially abused. The house is peaceful now. My garage is my sanctuary again, and I wake up every morning excited about the possibilities the day might bring. Whether it's a long ride through the countryside, working on one of my bikes, or just sitting on the porch with Patricia watching the sunset, every day feels like a gift. Looking back, I realize Victoria actually did me a favor by stealing my motorcycles. She forced me to open my eyes and see what our marriage really was. A completely one-sided arrangement where I provided everything and she contributed nothing but drama and financial drain. The money I'm saving by not supporting her lifestyle has allowed me to upgrade my bike collection. I recently bought a 1970 BSA Lightning that I'm restoring from the ground up, and I'm considering adding a modern sport touring bike for longer distance adventures. My advice to anyone in a similar situation: don't ignore the red flags, don't make excuses for someone who doesn't respect you, and always trust your gut when something feels wrong. I wasted 9 years of my life supporting someone who saw me as nothing more than a meal ticket and a stepping stone to the lifestyle she felt entitled to. But I got my revenge in the most satisfying way possible, by simply documenting her crimes and letting the legal system do its job. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well and being happy while your enemies face the consequences of their own terrible choices. Victoria is now in her late 30s with a criminal record and no marketable skills, living in a studio apartment and working retail to make ends meet. Meanwhile, I'm living my best life, surrounded by people who actually care about me and pursuing the hobbies that bring me genuine joy. The moral of this story is that actions have consequences, and karma is real. It might take time, but eventually people who use and abuse others get exactly what they deserve. Victoria thought she was so smart, playing the long game and planning her exit strategy, but she got greedy and impatient, and it cost her everything. Thanks for reading this incredibly long post. I hope you enjoyed the justice as much as I did. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a date with my Triumph and 200 miles of twisty mountain roads.